I do kind of pass in there. I'm like, hey, you're applying for this PTA pathways. And by the way, I created this about 20 years ago.
Isn't that
And
crazy?
they're like, what? Yeah, yep. I created this with a team of 20 volunteers nationwide, and we created all the framework for what you're doing today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today's guest is a trailblazer in PTA leadership. With 35 years in the profession and 20 years of military service, and a resume that reads like a roadmap for where PTAs can go when they refuse to settle for limits. From the classroom to the clinic, and now as a director of rehabilitation, he is proof that PTAs can lead at the highest levels, even earning board certification as a healthcare executive. Get ready to meet the man who's been breaking barriers long before PTAs had a seat at the table, and the second member of the infamous Barefoot Gang to be interviewed on this podcast. Please welcome to the show, Russell Stowers. Hello, Russell. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. This is exciting. I'm glad to finally get to talk to Katie's son. Yes.
Yes. I feel like I am in the presence of a celebrity because of course, you and I have met and talked and seen each other at all kinds of events and things like that. But I get kind of nerdy when it comes to things. And so when it's the leaders who kind of shaped some of the things that I get to participate in now, like, you're like this celebrity to me. So I am just honored to have you on.
Oh, no way I could be a celebrity.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I don't even know how you and I first met, but I do know that you and I have ended up in a lot of spaces and rooms together through the profession and things like that. You're just very threaded in. So I feel like everywhere I go, you're there somewhere.
Somewhere. I'm like a bad rash that won't go away.
In some capacity. I always say that about myself, that I just kind of like show up in places and start asking questions and like, hey, why can't it be?
Yeah, Woody Allen said, the best thing in life is just to show up.
Yeah, just show up and see what happens and kind of see what's going on around there. So yeah, do you mind, Russell, to just give our audience a quick background on who you are and what you do?
Sure. So currently I'm the director of rehab at an acute care hospital in Santa Fe, New Mexico, our oldest capital in the U.S. And I've been here in this role for 17 years. I started as a manager for the therapy team, and I've been the director now for close to 10 years or so. And so I'm responsible for some outpatient services, the inpatient rehab unit, which is 18-bed, and then all the acute therapy services. So 17 years I've been in a management role and helping that team and leading the rehab department to several national awards for accreditation and quality care. We have now received, just this past June, our CARF accreditation, the highest level of accreditation for 3 years, and we're also a stroke accredited facility. So all those accreditation activities are very comfortable and familiar with me, but it's a lot of quality initiatives that we have to put in place for not only therapy but nursing but for everything that we do for patients. And before that, I was a PTA program director for 10 years. At Del Mar College, I started that program from a grant from the state of Texas. I had $1.5 million, and they said, start a PTA program. I had no experience, no knowledge, no nothing to start an academic program. I was coming from a clinician role into starting a PTA program, and I was really leaning on my other colleagues and other health disciplines to say, hey, I have no clue what I'm doing here. I had to reach out to other PTA program directors throughout the U.S. and say, hey, I'm starting a new program. Where do I start with the curriculum? Where do I start with equipment? All of that stuff. The nice thing is I got really interested in that role because I was a site visitor for CAPD, and I did that as a clinician for 6 years previous to that. So I had 6 years of experience under my belt being a site visitor as a PTA clinician, going around to PTA programs throughout the U.S. And so I felt like I had some knowledge of what PTA programs should be doing from an accreditation level. So that helped me have some confidence in at least knowing some of the basics of what I needed to know to do that. But yeah, I had that program. I had over 300 students that graduated from the program in the decade that I was there. Most of the students were from South Texas. Many of them were immigrants from Mexico or South America. Many of them spoke English as a second language, so language was a barrier in the classroom a lot of times. So we had to do a lot of transcribing into Spanish and to some of the other languages. But most of those students stayed within South Texas. Their families were there, and when I go back and visit friends and family there, they're all over the community. I see them everywhere. So yeah, 300 plus students that were there. And then previous to that, I was a PTA clinician working in a variety of different areas. The most interesting thing that I did was I had an interesting title called an industrial rehab consultant.
Ooh, do tell.
Just a fancy term for a clinician that does consultation for ADA consultation in the workplace. So I was working with work hardening, work conditioning programs in an outpatient clinic, and I got a certification as an ADA consultant at the time that ADA was being rolled out nationwide in the 1990s. Early 1990s, and so I got tapped to do consultations in the industrial area to say, hey, our job descriptions don't match what the ADA federal regulations require. Can you look at our job descriptions and make sure they match with the federal regulations? So I did that in addition to working as a clinician doing that. And then I did a lot of home health in very rural parts of West Texas, which was really interesting. Got lots of skills. One of the most interesting stories, I walked into a patient's house in a very rural part of West Texas. Probably there was nobody within 20 miles of this house. I'll walk in, dirt floor, 2 shotguns on the table. Mom's sitting in a wheelchair. Dad's sitting over there with snuff in his mouth, and the kids are in the back. The grown kids.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, the shotgun's on the table and not feeling comfortable here.
Seems a little excessive, yeah.
I think I'll be back in a little bit.
Yeah.
When we remove the shotguns off the table.
Wow.
Yeah. So Wild Wild West still exists.
Yes, apparently. I'm listening to your story. I mean, you could probably go on and on.
Yes, lots
been
of stories
a PTA for
from home
35
health.
years. Is that
35 years?
You're only 30 some years old, so I don't understand.
Yeah, go figure.
You started working as an infant.
Right, exactly. I guess the only thing as far as interesting in my background is I went to a PTA program right out of high school. I was 18, and I got recruited to go into that program by my Navy recruiter.
Wow.
So I enlisted as a senior in the Navy. My father told me I needed to do either college or military, so I decided to do both.
Do both, yeah.
So I joined the Navy as a senior, and I was in the delayed entry program, and I did active duty for a period of time, and then I went into the reserve, and then did National Guard. But the naval recruiter, he said, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'm like, well, I really don't know. So he encouraged me. This was a recruiter at a large university, Texas Tech University in West Texas. And he said, you need to probably talk to an academic counselor. And this was when I was a freshman in college. I was 18. I'm like, okay, I'll just do what people are telling me to do. This is probably the right thing to do. So I went to the academic counselor. She took me through a whole slew of tests like Myers-Briggs, several aptitude tests, several skills, like learning what my math skills, all my ability to grow in certain professions. Spent a good amount of time with me kind of understanding who I was, what my aptitudes were, and then said, you know what, I'm going to give you 5 careers. We narrowed it down to 5 careers that you should pick because of your aptitude, your personality, and all of the things that you bring to the table at 18 years of age. And so I said, well, I guess I need to pick one of those. And I went back to my Navy recruiter and I said, well, I have physical therapy, occupational therapy, pastor, music professor, and a social worker.
Wow.
And so of those 5 professions, which one are you going to pay for? He's like, well, we'll pay for the PT or the OT one because we need that in the Navy.
I love this story.
And so he said, okay, well, so, we'll start with a 2-year degree, and we'll pay for all of your 2-year degree with your 8 years of commitment to the military. I'm like, okay, go team, since I
Yeah.
have $0 from my
Thank you so
mother
much.
and father for education, and nothing safe for education. I got to get money from somewhere. So he said, well, I'll help you look at some programs that are around either where you live or where you're currently at. And so I picked the PTA program at Amarillo College, where I actually grew up in Texas, and that program had been around for a long time. And graduated from that program, and really, from the very moment I started the program, our Ed Hankard, my PTA program director at the time, he's like, he picked on me a lot because I was the youngest, because I was 18, 19.
Yeah.
I was the youngest. I had to do all of the, the anatomy, the pathokinesiology. I had to show I'm always pulling off my clothes in class so they can do all the stuff, since I was the youngest. Anyway, so he, yes. So he mentioned, when we're talking about APTA and we're talking about getting involved in the profession, none of my classmates of 20 were like, yeah, who cares about that? Mm-hmm. I was the only one that was like, okay, how do I get involved? How do I, where do you sign me up?
Yeah.
Yeah, where do you sign me up? So I was already in my second year, last year of the PTA program, I was already applying to be affiliate assembly delegate at the time, or representative at the time. Yeah,
the past.
A long time ago. Yes, very long. So, and I ran, and I didn't win. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I just put my name in the hat and okay, let's try this thing. But I met a lot of friends at that time, and that was in 1989. Okay. 1989. So not quite 1990 is when I ran for that position. And really, it just kind of stuck. Second year as a PTA, I actually put my name in for being a PTA to get trained to be a clinician reviewer for CAPD. You had to have at least 2 or 3 years under your belt before you could be a surveyor with CAPD. And so I did that. And then, so that's my whole history. And then military was in there as well for 20 years. I did 8 years. I did some active duty in the Navy. I did reserve, and then I, as an enlisted person, then I joined the National Guard as an officer, and led a medical team for emergency preparedness throughout Texas and New Mexico.
Well, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? I wrote that down, that you obviously have a heart for service and leadership, because for you to know at age 18 that you were willing to put your name in the hat to run for positions already, I mean, that's something that is part of who you are. It just sounds like that's just part of the thread of your being, right?
I think so.
Yeah. And you wrote that in our format when we go back and forth. That was one of the things that you wrote, is that you just simply love serving people. And that's very obvious from everything that you've taken part in. I mean, goodness sakes, you must have a CV that's 35 pages long, because you've done it all.
It all. Yeah.
Jack of all trades, master of all of them.
Maybe not master of anything.
I don't know. It seems like you've been very successful in everything that you've done. It seems like you have a knack for putting thought into it. And if it's something that you really want to do, you're going for it, and you're going to do it well. I'm sure that there's been times where you feel like maybe you didn't succeed at something very well, but isn't that part of what makes us grow, is those moments of failure, like when you didn't get elected, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Failure is important for everybody, even children, right? Children have to fail in order to learn. And
Yes.
sometimes as parents, we have to let them fail because that's
Yes.
the only way they're going to learn, right?
Yes. And as a mom of a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, this is a daily lesson for me is I gotta let them figure it out. And it's not always
Mhm.
going to be great, but yeah, there's moments. So yeah, failure. I actually ran for a position one time as well against a very good friend of mine. We didn't know. Of course, they're not going to tell you who all was on the slate until the slate comes out, right? So then we like look
Mhm.
at each other and we're like, oh my goodness, we're running against each other. And it was one of the greatest lessons that I learned. And I learned a lot from her. And I think she learned a lot from me. And we kind of saw each other. We were very different people when we came into the profession from very different angles. And
Mhm.
I think that that's what makes service and leadership so interesting is you have all these different variations of backgrounds and diverse backgrounds. And that's what makes us special, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have been a PTA for quite a while, 35 years if I have that correct. So
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
was long before PTAs had a lot of opportunities like we do today. So what was it that kind of kept you motivated? Years ago, whenever there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity and the path wasn't always like super clear, like what were
Mhm.
the things that motivated you?
I think what was really helpful in Texas, I'll just use Texas as I've lived there. I lived there for most of my life, and then in New Mexico for the last 17 years. Um, and I was involved with the Texas chapter for so many different roles. PTA SIG chair. I was the chair of our district for many years. Just all different kinds of roles. Um, and you know what? The team, none of the PTs ever had a question. Never, not once. No one questioned my background, my degree, where I went to school, where I grew up. They did not care. They just appreciated that I was at the table, that I was there to serve, that I was there as a team member and willing to speak up. And
That's
and I didn't see that when I went to the national conference at the time. I saw just the opposite. Everybody's looking at my badge, turning away from me, shunning me because I was a PTA, not wanting to listen, not wanting to engage with me. And I'm like, wow, this is this is amazing that I can come from such a supportive family environment with my group of therapy leaders and then come to the national conference and it's just the opposite. But that was many years ago. And but we and I'm going to say the team of friends that I had at the time, we just said, you know what, we're going to be, like I said at the beginning, we're going to be that rash that's never going to go away.
I
we're,
love it.
we are just gonna keep bothering people, keep asking the hard questions, keep telling them who we are, why we're here, who we are as people, and why we're serving. Because guess what? At the end of the day, it's all the same. They're here for the same reason we are. We're all working for the same purpose, for the same patients. And so there's no reason why we should be looking at degrees, background, or anything like that. So I think just our consistency in asking the questions, in being there, being at the table, willing to answer the hard questions, being willing to do the hard work, right? Doing all the work. Like, okay, I can do all that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if I'm a PT or PTA, it doesn't matter. So I think they were just used to seeing us all the time, like, oh, well, I remember a friend of mine, Barb Sanders. She's a PT program director at Southwest Texas University. I remember her commenting. She's like, "Well, Russell, you're not going away," or she said something to that effect. I'm like, "Nope, I'm not going away. I'm going to be
Give me
here to
something
help
to do.
you. I'm helping you as a colleague. I'm helping you as a colleague and as a leader, and we're going to do this together." But it was interesting. She wasn't doing it maliciously. She was just asking, "Well, you're here. You're here. Yeah, of course I'm here. That's what
Yep.
I made a choice to be here. I'm not going to go away for
Mhm.
any reason." So, but yeah, the Texas group was so supportive. They've always been very, very supportive of their PTAs and have never. never shunned away from that, and they've always been really vocal at the national level in being a leader in the past of making some really hard motions on the floor in supporting our PTA colleagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. You know, it's interesting, just listening to you talk, what I'm getting out of this is doing the work. So, you know, I say this a lot is like, you know, I like to show up in rooms and then I ask questions. Why can't a PTA fill this? Or why can't a PTA do this or that or whatever? Or why isn't the opportunity there? But if you're going to come, the next step is if you're going to come and ask the question, you better be willing to do the work.
Yep.
Because if you've noticed a gap, you're probably going to be the one who's identified to fill that gap or to fill that need. So bring
Right.
those solutions in and have that ready. And this is something that I've really been kind of tapping into a lot this summer is the difference between leadership and followership. And PTAs are really great at fitting into that followership role, which is not a lesser role. A follower actually has very, very important tasks. And some of those tasks are bringing ideas to the table, bringing solutions to the table. So yeah, our leaders, they implement a lot, but the followers, we're the ones kind of doing those nitty gritty work and the details. So you got to be ready to bring things forward and be ready to do the work if you have the question.
Yeah, I like that because I've been in leader roles and follower roles in lots of different settings, probably more APTA and all the different roles than anything. And what I learn when I'm the follower is I really step back and try to look at who is the leader and like, what can I use as my strength to help them as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Because that's what followers are supposed to do. Like, what can
absolutely.
I do to help them do
Yes.
their best,
Mm-hmm. They point
right?
us in
And
the
then I
direction of
expect
that
the
goal.
same. And then I expect the same thing when I'm the leader. I'm like, okay, all of you are here to support our initiatives, our strategies, or whatever, and do the work that needs to be done. So
Yeah.
um, it reminds me one story, and I think this might be on my resume. I'm not sure if it is because it's so far back, but one of my first leadership roles with the APTA was the for the advanced proficiency. I was the first chairperson for that group, which led what is now the PTA Pathways Proficiency Program.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my team here at the hospital because I encourage a lot of our PTAs and the PTs to do specialization. But the PTAs are doing that, and they're always surprised when I tell them because they don't know the history, they don't know my whole history, and nor am I going to sit down and tell them.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I do kind of pass in there. I'm like, hey, you're applying for this PTA pathways, and by the way, I created this about 20 years ago.
Isn't that
And they're
crazy?
like, what? Yeah, yep. I created this with a team of 20 volunteers nationwide, and we created all a framework for what you're doing today.
You know, I love that because I think that it says a lot about the contributions that people have made to our profession. And there have been multiple things that I have had an amazing opportunity to work on through our association, some of which I am able to speak about and some I'm not privy to speak about. But one of them would have been the Centennial Steering Committee that I was on when we kind of had our big celebration for our 100 years. And now I look back and I see things like the Centennial Scholars Program. And I see whenever I walk into the Centennial Center, like APTA headquarters, and I see a lot of the threads of what we had worked on. I have a big mosaic in my office and I look at it all the time and I'm like, oh man, that was such a cool opportunity. And I see my fingerprints on these things, you know? And to like the larger population, they could probably care less, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was meaningful work. It was fun work, and I saw it move the needle somewhere, you know? And so to me, I feel like I get out of what I put in so much more. And so that's why I keep coming back, and that's why I find it valuable, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
I encourage people to be a part of it. And I think it's especially helpful to kind of mitigate some burnout and when we're starting to feel a little bit icky about like, oh, are we doing the right thing? You just named about 100 different ways that people can be involved or find opportunity or seek leadership or development.
Mm-hmm.
And if you continuously seek those things to kind of refine yourself and refine your skills, you're not likely going to get bored. Not quickly
Mm-hmm.
anyways.
Nope.
No. So
Right.
so many ways to be whatever it is that you want to be when you
Mhm.
grow up. Yeah.
That's great. That's right.
So speaking of certifications, because you talked a little bit about the PTA apps or the
Mhm.
advanced proficiency
Mhm.
pathways, but there's something else that I wanted to talk to you about, and I think this is so cool, and I'm excited that you're going to maybe kind of shed some light on this. There is a board certification for healthcare executive that PTAs can take. Is this
Absolutely.
correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you're
Yeah.
going to have to like drop this on us. Tell us all about this.
Okay.
Who offers it and where we can
All
find
right.
it? Because I think that this
All
is a great
right.
opportunity.
Yeah. So part of my work in the academic world, I did my dissertation. I got an EDD, doctorate in education, and my research was around professional development for PTs as well as PTAs. And I wanted to find tools that were effective in helping seasoned, non seasoned. The best example I can give you is, let's say a PTA has been out of practice because maternity leave, maybe medical leave, maybe they've been out of practice for 4 or 5 years, and they need a tool to really help them, like, okay, where are the gaps in my knowledge, either neuromuscular or cardiopulmonary and tech, some of those areas where I don't haven't had as much work in. So I part of my research was to create some tools to help clinicians determine the gaps and have a tool to help them grow in the areas that they need to go back into practice. So along those lines, being doing the PTA pathways program, um, Sean Bagby, y'all have heard his
I
name.
know him.
Everybody knows Sean.
I know Sean.
Sean came to me at one meeting about 3, 4 years ago. He's like, Russell, you need to be involved in the Academy of Leadership and Innovation. I'm like, and at that time it was HPA, which was Health Policy Administration. I'm like, okay, I knew about it, but I'm like, okay, really? I'd heard about some of the programs that they were doing programming over the years, but really nobody really ever reached out and said, hey, you need to like join us and be a part of the team, because we like your expertise. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, whatever. So I emailed the president at the time, Matt Massabo, and I said, hey, let's talk. I'll tell you my background and see if there's something that would be kind of along my expertise of what I'm passionate about. And let's see if we can connect the dots. And he's like, you will not even imagine. I'm like, oh my gosh, could not. I mean, the stars could not have aligned, even because I had always thought that APTA should have some kind of specialty for folks in a leadership or management role. They've moved out of that clinician role. They're not seeing patients, and there's kind of mixes of those. There's some PTs or PTAs, they'll do like half day where they're like a lead person and the other half of the day they're seeing patients. But regardless of what the mix of leadership is, there was really no certification or formal training to be a manager or a leader. So I'd already had that in my mind. I didn't know that the Academy of Leadership and Innovation was already on that train track and moving down that train when I joined on the train. So when I joined the group, there's two groups. The Academy of Leadership and Innovation, of course, is a section of APTA that anybody can join: PTs, PTAs, students, and it's always been around. It's not new. It's been around probably at least 40 years or more. It's just been called, now it's called the Academy of Leadership and
Yes.
Innovation, just
Yes.
like the Academy of Pediatrics, the Academy of Acute Care. It's a different section. And their focus is on all those non-clinical knowledge things that folks need to know. During COVID, the Academy of Leadership and Innovation was really great about putting out webinars to
Mhm.
acute care hospitals and clinicians about how do we need to manage this COVID as therapy professionals. And they were the ones that were leading the way in having those discussions with the entire profession. So they're kind of on the forefront of all those things that are not clinical type things. So management and leadership training is a part of that. So there's two arms. One's called the LAMP School of Management, and there's the LAMP Leadership Institute. The LAMP Leadership Institute has probably been around the longest as far as the training arm of leadership, and it's really about leading within and then leading others. There's 2 training, 101, 102. They're usually 2-day intensive things at CSM, or they do on the road wherever you're at, they can come to you and do those things. And so it's more about leadership skills. Like I said, leading yourself and leading others, and all those things you need to know. LAMP School of Management is more the nuts and the bolts, because management is one thing, leadership is another. Okay, leadership is leading others, leading strategies. Management is all the nuts and bolts in order to lead people, in order to get them there. Okay, so for example, the LAMP School of Management, we have 2 courses called Management Essentials and then Advanced Management Concepts. Anyone can take the courses. You don't have to have even students could take them if they wanted to.
Okay.
And they're 2 6-week courses. Management Essentials is 6 weeks, Advanced Management, and it's all virtual. We used to have these at CSM and at APTA conferences where they would be 2-day courses, pre-cons. And so now we've moved it 100% virtually. And we're now in our 5th cohort of students. Over close to 200 students have gone through. And we just created this a year and a half ago. So, so the coursework, and this is a work in progress, because this is a very new certification. So what someone has to do. So if a PTA says, you know what, I'm moving into a manager role within whatever, my outpatient clinic, and I'm now going to be the lead at this clinic, but I would like some leadership and management skills, and have a group of people that I can work with, and a cohort of leaders that are also learning along with me. So joining the Management Essentials course, which we offer 4 online virtual trainings a year, 4 cohorts a year, and you just jump into one of those, and you're with a group of people who are learning right in step with you. And they're across the country, all settings. They could be outpatient, it could be a pediatric center, it could be a surgical center, it could be an outpatient mom and pop outpatient clinic. So all different areas. 2 6-week courses. And then if they have the requisites and they've completed the coursework appropriately, they have to complete all the coursework. They have to do the post-test, 80% or better, and they have at least a year of experience in a leadership or management role. They can actually sit for the board certification as a healthcare executive. So it's a 200-question exam. It's a very challenging exam because it covers topics that we cover in Management Essentials and Advanced Management Concepts, which includes project management, finance, strategic planning, data-informed leadership, IT, and the list goes on, and I'm not going to list all the topics, but it's about 25 different areas of healthcare management that someone needs to have some kind of basic knowledge if you're going to lead or manage small, large healthcare groups or systems. So once they complete the exam and they have passed it successfully, then they can be they have credential as a board certified healthcare executive.
Wow, that is.
They will get a pin. Let's see, here it is.
Yeah.
There's the pin.
Love it.
That they would get, and this is a sanctioned credential from the APTA. It is a non-clinical credential, so it's not being managed by the same board that manages all the clinical certifications. It is very akin to, though, what nursing does, and what people who get an MHA degree and are not a clinician, they get a board certification from the American College of Healthcare Executives, and it's called a Fellow of the American College. So it's a board certification as a healthcare leader with that organization. It's for non-clinicians that are healthcare leaders. So it's very much, and that's kind of why we did BCHE. So it was very similar to FACHE, which is the board certification for the American College of Healthcare Executives. And then nursing has a executive training for nurse executives, which is called BCHE, BCNE, which is Board Certification Nurse Executive.
Okay.
So the three are they're very similar, but
Yeah.
ours is really specifically for therapists, PT, PTA, OT, speech therapists. We've had 3 occupational therapists that have gone through, 2 speech therapists. I'll tell you a really interesting story. One of our PTs and one of our speech therapists. One of the PTs who went through the program completed the program, and immediately he got a promotion as an executive within his organization after he completed his program, because he was promoting himself. He's like, I just spent 3 months. I have a cohort of learners. I set for this board certification. He told his leader, and they gave him a promotion as an executive within the healthcare system. Same thing happened with a therapy manager that works here in the hospital that I work in. I encouraged her to do this, and she's a speech therapist, so she was one of only 3 speech therapists that went through this training. And I helped her with it, but she also let other people know, other nurse leaders know, other people within the hospital. And my boss heard about it and said, you know what? Even though this is a very interesting story. This will never happen. This is very unusual. So, as you know, if you've worked in hospitals, nurses typically manage nurses. You don't have other people managing nurses. Like doctors don't manage nurses typically. You don't have PTs managing nurses. It's pretty much an insular discipline, and they do that for a purpose. They do it for a variety of reasons. But there's no reason why a PT or a PTA could manage. I'm not going to manage nursing practice, but I can certainly help them understand leadership, grow as a person, behavioral management if there's issues, and all of the other things that come with healthcare practice. The nursing piece is just one part of it. So they promoted her to a nurse leadership role after she completed the certification, and now she's our manager for the nursing unit in the rehab unit. So never in the history of this organization have we had a non-nurse lead a nursing team, and she's doing phenomenal. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's not going to lead. And what they were really clear with her is that she's not going to be able to tell a nurse what to do as far as patient care, because she's not a nurse. But she can go in there and give them some suggestions, like, well, as a speech therapist, this is what I would do if I was working with a patient, if I had this challenge, because a lot of time it's interpersonal communication and just learning how to work with different personalities and communication styles. And so she's obviously the right person to do that as a speech therapist, as far as learning all those types of things. So, yeah, yes, the program is absolutely 100% open for PTs and PTAs. We've only had 1 PTA join. We have 37 now board certified healthcare executives, 3 of which are speech therapists. All the others are PTs. Well, 1 OT. I apologize. One is OT, and from across the U.S. We also have an online learning platform, a learning management system, where all of them are in a alumni group. So they reach out to each other like you and I would do, Katie, for example. Like you would email in the alumni group, like, I'm leading this new group of whatever discipline it is, and I don't understand what the staffing ratio should be to patients. Has anybody had any experience like that? So they put that question out into the alumni group, and then there's 200 executive leaders across the U.S. that are mostly therapists working in executive roles that are able to chime in and give them feedback on what some solutions would be. So it's a great group of people to kind of continue to grow in that particular area. Would be very similar if you work in a specialty role in pediatrics or acute care or geriatrics. You want to have some people who are kind of the experts in that area when you have questions. So we've created that same thing. So we have a LAM School of Management Committee, which we are definitely interested in having more people involved in that, because we do all the nuts and bolts work. Let me tell you, I have spent probably 2,000 plus hours developing all the curriculum online for our training modules. And I had the experience in academia before, because I was right on the ground of when we started doing learning management systems and academics. I'm like, I feel comfortable with doing this. I've used Blackboard, and so it
I know
was
Blackboard,
it
yeah.
was, yeah, it was really comfortable to me. But others had not, unless they'd worked in academia. So created all of that. It's already created. Now we have to tweak it and grow it. And we have a curriculum committee. Brian Hull leads our curriculum committee. He's an executive at Baylor Scott and White in Texas, and he is amazing. He was the previous chair of the Lamb School of Management. I'm the current chair, and he needs more people. So if there's any PTs out there, PTAs, PTs out there that would like to get involved in curriculum development, learn more about this certification, whatever leadership role, there's certainly lots of things that you can learn through this. I think one of the things I always kind of tout with my team, I was just talking to one of the PTs here that wants to get more in a leadership role. I said, the one thing that would really help her is project management, because everybody in healthcare, every therapist is working on at least one project, right? So we have a great expert that really helps to lead the content, and then all the skills you need to have to really manage and lead a project well. So those are great skills to have, even if you work outside of therapy and you're working for your parent and teacher association down the street, and you're working on a project to develop support for the teachers, right? So there's skills that will cross over into lots of outside of therapy things as well. So that was a lot. I apologize.
No, this is great information. I think that this is information that not a lot of people are aware of, that's available to them at their fingertips. Again, this is all stuff that people can easily access. Easily get through it. I know it's going to be work for sure, but get their fingers on it and start working on something like this. But let's talk a little bit about, who do you think is a good fit for this? Like, if there's a PTA out there that you would meet and be like, hey, I think this is a great opportunity for you, like, what kind of things do you think a PTA or a PT should be bringing to the table to fit into this kind of category?
Yeah, I think if they're a clinician out for, say, even 4 or 5 years, I think eventually they're going to be in some type of leadership role in any setting.
Hmm.
Whether it's they're the staff lead for the day, or they are being tapped by their manager to like lead a project.
Hmm.
They're So really any clinician is going to be thrust into, hopefully willingly,
Hmm.
into a leadership role at some point in their career. So really, I think anyone could value from this information. Whether they choose to sit for the board certification, they don't have to do that. They actually could just go through the coursework, get the certification, get the CEUs for the 2 courses,
Hmm.
and then not have to sit with the board certification. We are really carefully thinking about some other next steps with the board certification, to really think about the credibility, because we want to maintain the credibility with the curriculum, with the credential, because we want it to be very well recognized, just like those other credentials with the other disciplines, like
Yeah, of course.
physicians and nurses and healthcare executives. We want this to be the gold standard credential for any therapy leader that is moving into that career, that they need to go through this training and get the certification. So just like you would for any clinical area. And we do all of this as volunteers. I have a group of 30 or 40 volunteers. We do this all with $0.
Smile
Those
on your face.
2,000 hours that I helped to develop, I get paid for none of it.
Yeah.
So we do it because we're passionate about making sure that our therapists, PTs and PTAs, become strong leaders within their organization, because we feel, I personally feel, that oftentimes they don't look at us as leaders. They often they're always tapping on the nurses and the doctors to always be the leaders of the clinic or leaders of the department or leaders of the hospital, when really therapists have the requisite knowledge just as well as they do to be very strong leaders in healthcare organizations. We have PTAs, believe it or not, that have been CEOs of hospitals. One
Mhm.
of my very good friends, Deb
Yep.
Borman in Arizona, she was a CEO of LTAC, Long-Term Acute Care Hospital, and did very well in her role as a PTA and as the CEO of that organization. They received many awards for all the quality care that they provided. So yeah, the sky is the limit. But she is actually one of our content experts in this coursework around strategic planning and professionalism. And we have many other experts from across the U.S. that are the teachers in this coursework. So I think, yes, so to answer your question, Katie, I think anyone is going to be tapped at some point in their career for some type of leadership project or leadership role, and they should definitely take advantage of this training.
I love that you are bringing this up about how we're all eventually going to be tapped for these kind of roles in our everyday job. And working in education, I get this a lot from clinicians who are maybe considering, like, what does that next step look like for them?
Mhm.
And maybe they are considering eventually in the future getting out of clinical care, or just kind of bumping up what they do in clinical care and looking for some of those leadership roles. And oftentimes I'll tell them that you need to get plugged in. So, if you are thinking about taking the next step into education or whatever that next role is for you, you do have to get yourself plugged into some resources that are going to help develop that. And Russell, I'll tell you, when I knew that I was getting ready to step out of the clinic, and this was like a years, this wasn't overnight, like for years, I kind of developed this. I did things that might seem silly to other people, but I took a leadership role in our church doing nursery directing. Like I directed the nursery for a while. I
Mhm.
took on coaching roles with our local high school. I took on certain like survey data collection at our clinic. Anything that I could do to increase my skill in leadership and in management and some of those fine-tuned skills that maybe I didn't have to do absolutely every day, but that would help me build my resume that says, yes, I can lead a team and this is why. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter if I led a team of, I don't know, fill in the blank, PTs, PTAs, OTs, nurses, whatever, or if I led a team of nursery volunteers, right? You know, leadership is leadership.
Right.
Right. So I love that you mentioned that because I think that it's so very true. You don't know when you're going to be stepping into that next role.
Mhm.
It could be for a short period. It could be for a day. It could be for months. It could be a long-term thing.
And you never know that it may elevate you into positions once you go through the training, like I mentioned those examples, into roles that you never even imagined.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, what kind of skills and aptitudes do you think that you see? Because we talked a little bit about this before we got going, but
Mhm.
when you're looking at somebody who's in a leadership or in a management position, like what do they possess that
I think the number one thing is you have to have a humble confidence.
mm, I like
You
that.
you have to be humble. Everybody fails. Like we talked at the beginning. Everybody fails, and you just have to take ownership and the responsibility for your failures and apologize, but then move forward quickly and be resilient. And leaders are resilient. If you cannot be resilient, you will not survive. And so whatever punches you have, whatever, I mean, I really have to reach in deep into my spiritual life in order to have strength some days to be able to have the boldness and the courage to do what I do. And you have to reach in whatever resilience that you have in order to be successful. Um, because, yeah, it's hard work. And, therapy is hard work, leadership is definitely hard work as well. But resilience, courage, being humble, being willing to fail and then learn from it, grow from it, continuing to grow and learn in your style and learning from others. I often at many meetings with one-on-ones with staff that I really trust, that they're going to give me feedback. I'll ask them, you know what, Katie, we had a great conversation. Is there anything in this conversation that I could have done better to support you as a leader? Is there anything that you could give me to help me grow as a leader? And that's, get ready for the darts.
Mhm.
It could be, but most of the time it's very positive. I think one of the attributes that I bring that I often forget, that is kind of my superpower, is my positiveness. I I just come to the job being very positive.
Mhm. That humble servant leader. So, and that's something that, Russell, everybody knows about you. I've never seen you not have a smile on your face. So, is now a good time to talk about the Barefoot Gang or not?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You have to go there. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, all right. Yeah. So I have a huge group of friends. Well,
Yes,
there's
because
not just
I
a
want
huge.
the audience to hear about this before you go any further. So the reason why I'm bringing this
Oh.
up is, if anybody remembers my very first, nobody remembers. Like, I
Mhm.
act as if I have a million followers here, but the very first podcast that I ever did was with Chris Junkins. And
Uh-huh.
so the whole reason,
I
when
remember I
I
saw it. It
started
was
this
great.
podcast, yeah. So when I started this podcast, of course, a good friend of mine encouraged me to do this, and he said, "Who's the first person you want to interview?" And I
Mhm.
said, "I got it. I know exactly who I want to, because I had just read the article that Chris had put into the
Mhm.
APTA magazine about
Mhm.
the Barefoot
Yeah.
Gang." And I'm like, "I want to talk to Chris. I want to get him on. I need to pick his brain." Because, I mean, I think that I don't know how much outside assistance he had from the whole group, but he really went into like the nuts and bolts of how PTA leadership and opportunities were back in, what would you say, like early
Mhm.
90s, mid
Mhm.
90s,
Right.
what
Yeah.
that looked like. Yeah. So, I mean, his episode is still, and not that I have favorites, but it was just such a genuine conversation,
Yeah.
like in what he brought about your gang. So now, I
Mhm.
don't mean to make you cry again. So, like, I'll try not to, I'll
And
only
I
ask
never,
fun
and I
questions.
never cry. I never cry. Um,
So tell us a little bit about the Barefoot Gang
um,
from your perspective.
yeah. Well, I'm just humbled to be a part of the group. Oh my gosh, to have a group of friends that are colleagues from across the U.S. I mean, I tell people about this almost daily, and they're like, "Wow, I wished I had a group of colleagues or friends that I could stay connected to, or even family that I could stay connected to, and we plan things." So for 25, close to 25 years, we've been significantly connected, almost on a daily basis. We're in a group chat, and so we throw in random pictures of grandkids, and I went to this great restaurant last night too. But we're very persistent and consistent about the communication. We never lose touch. And we always feel like when we either join virtually as the group of 8 of us, that we have never lost any time in 25 years. We felt like we know each other, we know our backgrounds, we know our families, we know everybody's name, we know their struggles, both internally, spiritually, emotionally,
Hmm.
and we support each other.
Hmm.
And you don't get that every day
Hmm.
with even your own family.
Yeah. And
So
you know what? I
it's
can,
really meaningful for me, as well as I know for all of them. And we're really intentional about staying connected. And we try to always plan a trip at least once or twice a year. We've been all over the US. And we have some traditions, just like families do. So we have a puzzle that we always put together from a picture from the last time, and then we always do a skit. We started about 5 years ago doing a skit, um, and yeah, so we do it. Somebody's in charge of the skit every year, and so last year we did a talent show. The year before we did it, I did a
I
skit.
love this.
It's so somebody's always in charge of all the traditional things that we do as a group. But yeah, no, these are all PTA leaders that have been in different areas, but we all connected in APTA and in different leadership roles, follower roles, as well as and we kind of switched roles many times in different venues where I was the leader, they were the follower, and vice versa. But we just learn to respect each other as colleagues, and then grow each other as friends and family. So
Well,
that's
I think that you're telling me about all the really cool, fun things that you guys get to do. But like when you look at it on paper, the whole gang, like the credentials are off the charts. Like you guys are movers and groovers. Like you get things done. Like you guys are in places where PTAs were not supposed to be, and you all broke the barrier. And so to me, like that's just as impressive as the fact that you guys do a skit every year, which is also very impressive, by the way. But when I hear you talk about the folks in your gang, and when I hear Chris talk about it, of course, I see you two a lot more than most of the others. But you're very proud of what everybody has achieved, and you're so excited to talk about the achievements of others in your group here. So it's not just a single pushing one person forward; it's the whole group moving together forward through life.
Yeah, through life.
Yeah. Well, this is really cool. I kind of have a group I mean, we're not anywhere near the status of the Barefoot Gang, but we do talk almost every day on a regular basis, just a group of people that's, hey, just thinking about you guys, or you won't believe what happened. And like you said, they just become threaded into your life, and you just want them to experience and be a part of that. So I'm really glad that you have that. And I think everybody needs to get their group of people that they can lean on. You need that.
You have to have that. Yeah, especially as we get older and we get close to retirement. You've got, social isolation is such a hard thing for our elderly patients, and I really want them to have the same level of friends and connections that they have with people. And the best way to do that is to serve others.
I love it. That's great. So you've been leading for a really long time. You've been in PTA, the PTA realm and the profession for several decades here. So what's the one thing that you wish you would have known from day one now? Like if you can look back, is there something you're like, if somebody would have told me that on day one, it would have made a big difference?
If I would have known Katie Sutton. No, okay. Let's see.
You wouldn't have wanted to know me that long ago. I was kind of a little ditzy and wandering around aimlessly.
Let's see. What would I tell someone? I would say, I would say exactly what you were sharing earlier, Katie, is that you've got to find those opportunities um, that are hidden, that you don't even know what you're going to learn from those leadership abilities, whether it's a leadership ability or just a task at your church or wherever it is. You don't know what you're going to learn until you jump in and find out. And if anything, you're going to develop some interpersonal relationships with people who you've never connected with before. And you never know which of those are going to turn into that lifelong friendship, mentorship relationship, someone helping you with something, and just growing and learning in those things, and just putting yourself out there is really valuable for lifelong learning. So I would tell a new person that they need to serve in areas that they've never thought of before, and really stretch and grow in areas that they didn't anticipate.
I love that. Nobody is coming to save us. We have to be able to build our own boat, and that is scary sometimes.
Mhm.
So, Russell, I'm sure just like me, there's been many times that you've shown up in a big room and you were the only PTA there.
Mhm.
And most of the time, people don't care. If you come bringing your best self and you come bringing solutions, that's all that matters, right? So it really doesn't matter about titles at that point in time. So you got to be brave sometimes. I think that you said that earlier, humble confidence. You got to. So to me, there's a little bit of bravery that comes with that confidence, right? So
Mhm.
we have to be brave sometimes when we step into these rooms, knowing full well you're probably the only PTA there.
Yeah. And I've been, I I think it's important to be very cognizant of the privilege that I've had as a white male too. So irregardless of being a PTA, I think it's important for other people, for me to recognize as a white male that there are others who have not had the opportunities that I've had. And so I'm always looking out for those individuals that I can grow that haven't had the same privileges as I've had.
Yeah. Well, Russell, that's what makes you a great leader, is because you're always thinking of others. So
Thank you.
yes. Russ, thank you so much for joining today. We've covered a lot of ground, and I think that we could have talked for another hour, and there's still more information, and we might have to do a round 2 here coming up in the future. I would love to get some updates on LAMP, and kind of like pull in some new information, and maybe we can get some people who have been through the program on, and we can talk a little bit more about it.
You know what, Katie, I think would be a really great discussion is to pull the 7 or 8 of us in the Barefoot Gang together in a group. We could all get together. We could all figure out a time where we could all be together.
Sounds like it's going to have to be an in-person. So how about I bring this and you bring the rest of them? Okay. Tell me where to meet you all.
Yes.
I can be an honorary member for just one day.
Yeah. That would be so great, because then you really don't know until you've actually seen all of us together and how we kind of work with each other, and then hear from each other's perspectives. I think it would be great. I think a lot of people would gain a lot from that and how we connect.
I think so too. So I'll be waiting for my invitation to the next Barefoot Gang vacay. And I won't stay the whole time, I promise. I'll just long enough to catch you.
The skit. We'll put you in the skit.
Yes, please do. I would love it. It would be such an honor. So.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, thank you, Russell. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you.
This is fun. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to PTA Plus, the podcast for PTAs by PTAs. Subscribe, follow us on social, and share the show. Elevate yourself. This show is for educational purposes only. No clinical decision-making should be made from its content. See you next time.